Okay, so you're all very welcome to this special night. I'm here in the Dublin Buddhist Centre, and actually it's lovely to be here in the centre again, because I actually haven't done very much teaching in here at all, if any, over the last year. So it's very, very good to be here. We've got this really beautiful shrine behind us. So thanks to Rob McKeown. Is Rob there? I guess he is, yeah. So thanks to, oh, there he is, Rob, how you doing? So thanks very much, Rob, for building the shrine. And it's very beautiful this way. And behind us, then you've got a whole mess of wires and cables and everything, but you're seeing the better half of the shrine room. So to say what we're going to do tonight, it's something to do with some people. They're not on camera yet, but we'll reveal them in a moment. So we're gonna welcome back, obviously, Varabandhu and Prasannadeva. And this, just to give you a structure of the night before I hand over to them, we're going to, well, why don't we begin with the refuges and precepts, actually? That would be good. And so we'll do that in a moment. And then we'll hear a 20-minute talk from each of the guys. And after the 20-minute talk from each of the guys, what we'll do is we will have a questions and answer session. So if you have any questions, you can stick them in the chat. And I might ask Stephen to kind of relay them to us, if that's okay, afterwards, because I'm a bit far away to read them. And then we'll have a short tea break, a 10-minute tea break. And then after the tea break, if you want to stay on, we'll be doing a threefold puja and a meditation. And that'll be the evening. So the main thing anyway is to introduce these fine two men. But in a moment, I'll do that in a moment, actually. Sorry to keep jumping around. So why don't we first of all salute the shrine, and then we'll chant the refuges and precepts. So welcome again if you've just joined us. And I think I see Sioux City there, or Press City from Newcastle on Time, and some others that might have been ordained with these guys. So anyways, without further ado, Stephen, could you spotlight the other camera? So I introduce to you Varabandhu and Prasannadeva. So we're all here, by the way, they're wearing their order robes. So these are the robes that they wore on their course and they got ordained in. All order members can have these robes to wear at special events. And just also to say, in case you're worried, we all live together. So we're a COVID kind of bubble together, and Tony is behind the camera over here as well. So you don't need to worry about us giving anything to each other but intense punya, merit, and spiritual attainments and so on. Yeah. So I'm going to invite Varabandhu to give a talk now, but before I do, I want to read out what his private preceptor Parmabandhu said about him at his public ordination, just to set the scene for why he's called Varabandhu. He will explain that himself as well in a few moments, I'm sure, as part of his talk. So this is what Parmabandhu said. Declan Brennan becomes Varabandhu. One of the first things that struck me when I met Varabandhu was his friendliness and the importance of friendship to him. He naturally wants to engage and connect with others. He takes a lively interest in other people. In particular, Varabandhu has a strong feeling for fidelity and friendship. He makes the effort to keep his friendships in good repair and is quick to sort out any misunderstandings. Bandhu means brother or friend, and Vara means excellent, best, splendid, or noble. Thus, Varabandhu translates as he who is an excellent friend. Bhante's emphasis on friendship in Triratna, with the oft-quoted Kalyana Mitrata as the whole of the spiritual life, is relevant here. Friendship is a way of discovering oneself and transcending oneself. We find out who we are through our relations with other people, their effects on us, and their feedback, especially within the Sangha. We go beyond ourselves in our efforts to befriend new people and to put our friends first. The greatest friend of all is, of course, the Buddha. So his name connects Varabandhu with the Buddha, as well as the whole lineage of spiritual friendship in the Sanghas throughout the ages, and with Bhante and Triratna in particular. So Varabandhu. So Varabandhu, why don't you come over here and take a better camera, and you can, let me just get the timer set up here. Thank you. And Stephen, if you could change the spotlight then. Great. Right, let's see who is here. It's great to see you all. Can
can see you all, but I'm not going to start fidgeting with the laptop. But yeah, I wish you were all here physically. That would be great. But someday, soon, hopefully. So I'm a little nervous, actually, I must admit. I'll just get my timer right there. So thanks, Vajrasana, for that. It's great. It's great to be here. I was just reflecting earlier that the last time I would have faced a lot of you, so, obviously there's some new faces since then, was March 2020, when myself and the being who is now Prasannadeva, we're sitting here and you were rejoicing, and some of you were rejoicing in us and sending us off to get ordained. And of course, we all know what happened then. A flu-like virus, but we got ordained. Yeah. So yeah, what I want to do is talk a little bit about why I asked for ordination first, and then the preparation for that, and then talk about that voyage to Spain, the circuitous route. Yeah, I know what it means to have been ordained. So yeah, I asked for ordination in August 2015, and I'd been coming along to the centre for a while, and I went on this retreat in with the Guhyaloka, actually, down in Cork, and I met this guy called Guhyaloka, and I was just really impressed by him. He was this just strong, no nonsense bloke who was so comfortable in his own skin. He was utterly at ease with himself, and very manly, but he was very in touch with his own inner life as well. So he had the sort of the yin and the yang, if you will. He was unabashedly spiritual, even mystical, devotional. But mostly he was more than anything, he was just totally comfortable in his own skin. He was the most Guhyavajra any Guhyavajra could ever be. And that's what kept coming up to me. It was like, he's making the most of being Guhyavajra. No one's ever going to be Guhyavajra again. And he's really going for it. And I thought, I want to really go for it. So I asked for ordination because I knew he'd gone through that. And I knew that must have been part of the reason he was operating, as it were, in the way he was, and still is. Just a little caveat, he was only the latest in a long line of very impressive order members that I'd met in Dublin and Ireland. But he was sort of the straw that broke the donkey's back. Yeah, so I just wanted to be fully committed to something bigger than myself. I wanted to be the best Declan Brennan that any Declan Brennan could be, and to do justice to this short, precious life. To do things wholeheartedly. Yeah, so I asked for ordination, went through the training, and eventually I got the letter to say I could go. I could be ordained, and I could go on the ordination retreat in Spain in 2020. And in the run up to that, I remember feeling a great increased sense of open-heartedness and just sense of any old lingering grievances just falling away as I prepared for what we call the Tiger's Cave, going into the Tiger's Cave, sort of symbol for ordination and for spiritual reawakening. But of course, all that preparation is built up to March 2020, and then COVID-19. So last year, the last year from then was for all of us such a difficult year, such a challenging year. And I mean, I don't have time to go into that, but I mean, essentially, it was great that the team behind the ordination, the team who are based in the UK, including my preceptor, Varabandhu, they just went to great lengths to get they never gave up on the idea of us going to Spain and getting ordained there, or at least having a long retreat there. So by April this year, we had a new plan. And that was to go to Vajrasana Centre in the UK for 2 weeks, get ordained there, and then hopefully go to Spain. So on May the 1st, myself and Prasannadeva, Vajrasana actually drove myself and Prasannadeva to Dublin Airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, with bags packed for Spain, but with no certainty that we'd actually be allowed to get on the plane. Such was the, we basically had these letters saying we had reasonable grounds for travel, and anyway, by midday we were in Adishtana, which is another retreat centre where we were doing a solitary retreat, and socially isolating in the UK. What we're doing for time. So we had 2 weeks there, and that was really good actually. As it happened, that hadn't been part of my plan. I planned to go off and do a solitary in Wales, while Prasannadeva did a solitary in Adishtana. But as it happened, it was really great being there, because as some of you know, that's where the Bhante Sangharachita, the founder of our spiritual community, is buried, and that's where he lived out the last of his life. And but for Bhante, I wouldn't be here. But for Bhante Sangharachita, I wouldn't be here. The Dublin Buddhist Centre wouldn't be here. I've always felt a great depth of gratitude to him. But it was great being there, circumambulating the burial mound and really connecting more and more with that gratitude. And I was reading his memoirs. We were both reading his memoirs around the time of when he left India, gave up this very comfortable life he had in Kalimpong, and to go and set up a completely new movement, a Buddhist movement in the West, because he saw there was a need for that. And the level of that sacrifice really became quite clear to me. So it felt really significant actually to go from Adishtana to get ordained, for that to be the last place I'd be as my old self. On May the 17th, we drove across England to Vajrasana, which is in the beautiful flat Suffolk countryside. And there, for the first time in about 18 months, I was reunited with my preceptor, Varabandhu. And that was just wonderful. So we'd been keeping in touch over Zoom. He's based in London, and we would have seen each other regularly before the lockdown. So that was just fantastic seeing him again. And obviously, there's a very deep connection there. Going for walks with him every couple of days. And as we got closer to the ordination, so we're getting to the meaty bit here now, guys. I was definitely feeling what I described as pre-wedding jitters. And so he was really good at talking me down from the precipice. And we didn't have a stag night or anything, but anyway, so the private ordination happened they started happening, they happened over 3 nights. There was 12 men getting ordained, some of who I see here. It's really good to see you, Prasidi, and I'm sure there might be others I can't see. So 4 each night, and I was on the second night. I was very excited. I was pretty much beside myself. Yeah, it was just wonderful. So your name gets called out. You're in the shrine room with everyone else meditating, and you know you're going to get called out, but then your name gets called out, my old name, and you walk out of that shrine room and you walk down. You find the hut where you know the kuti, where you know your private preceptor is going to be waiting, and you do that journey on your own. And it's quite a mythical journey. It symbolizes the fact that I'm deciding to do this myself. I'm going for refuge to the Buddha Dharma Sangha because I want to, because I believe it's the most important, the best thing I can do with my life. But entering the this beautiful cootie. I did feel a bit clumsy on coot, but Parmabandhu, ever friendly and ever kind, his beaming smile very quickly put me at my ease. And I won't say much about what happened there, because inside the cootie there is a sort of a mythic element around that, and you have to find out yourself, basically. But I will say that one of the lovely things was chanting the verses which we've just chanted, the Pali verses of the refuges. Say I'm going for a refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I've done it hundreds of times. Many of you have done it hundreds of times, but doing it there in call and response to my preceptor, who was there to witness me initiating into a new life. It was really significant. Each syllable weighed with the sense that it brought me closer and closer to this initiation. And at that, I leave it. Within that situation, I got my new name, and I liked it. I liked it at first. I liked it the minute I heard it. So I loved the sound of it. I felt very much like my preceptor had really got to the essence of me, actually more so than I could myself, because it was only when I heard it that I realized, oh yeah, friendship is the whole thing I base my whole life around. It's my core go-to. And it's a manifestation of the ideals in my heart. It's the way I live out those ideals, those ideals of universal love, of interconnectedness, words that are not cool, not fashionable, and ideals that had to lay very silent in my heart for a long time until I came to the doors of the Dublin Buddhist Centre. Indeed, friendship is at the heart of Bhante's religion. He said that it's possible for any human being to communicate with any other human being, to feel for any other human being, to be friends with any other human being. And he said that that's at the core of his religion. And thirdly, then, as Parmabandhu said, as read by Vajrasana there, what Parmabandhu has done with my name is set out a path for me, a path of practice, which feels very visceral, very real, very exciting, a path where I can walk the path of friendship and use my love of friendship to grow beyond myself more and more. So a few days later, then once everyone had been ordained, and Prasannadeva will tell you more about his own ordination, but it was lovely to know that the next night he got privately ordained, and he had been initiated into this new life. And we were in silence then for a few days, but there was definitely there was a lovely energy in the room we were sharing. So the public ordination is where we really entered the order, and you get this case around your neck. Once it goes around your neck, you're in the order. So that was really emotional. So you're bowing down in front of the public preceptor, Artapriya, who's ordained, I'd say, over 100 men, and each one, dear to him. And I was choking up, and then you're turning around to face everyone in the shrine room. And I remember thinking, right, we'll get it together here, because you don't want everyone to think you're really upset at being ordained. At the end of that day, I remember thinking, I felt like a man who had married their beloved, and that he's head over heels in love with this man or woman, deeply infatuated with them. And he somehow knows that as long as he remains faithful and committed, his beloved will never, ever let him down, will never leave him, will never stop loving him, and will always wish the best for him. So pretty perfect marriage. Okay, I'm running way behind here. So we went to Spain then. We're in Spain. So we had a dreamlike voyage. Maybe again in the dead of night, we got on a bus and at 3 o'clock or something like that, bleary-eyed, and by midday we were in the Spanish Valley. So it was quite dreamlike. And immediately I loved the place. I was just taken by the physical beauty. The Bealoud glade, the rounded mountains like silent sentinels watching over us, the hazy heat. And on the very first full day we had, so the day after we arrived, there was this dramatic lightning storm that was slowly but inexorably making its way up from the plains below into the valley, as if to welcome us with this show of splendor and force, and set down a marker, and perhaps even to humble us. So I'm just going to read a list of things I liked and things that were difficult. I think I probably knew at this stage in the talk I'd be running behind schedule, so this was quite clever. So here we go. So I loved the outdoor wash basins, the woodland showers where you heated a bag of water in the midday sun, the compost toilets. So I just love the simplicity of life in nature. I love the simple living quarters. We had a room about 10 foot square with 2 single mattresses on sheets of plywood balanced on breeze blocks, with views of the mountains and the blue sky through curtainless windows. The intensity of communication, the camaraderie, and the crack. Studying the Dharma in the open air with birds singing in the trees and the sun filtering through the leaves. The rich abundance of brightly colored fauna, the scents of pine and rosemary and of lemon thyme in the evenings, and the whoosh of dragonflies flying through the air in the evenings. The rising and setting of the moon as it grew from a delicate filigree of silvery white, appearing coquettishly one night to a bright fullness, casting ghostly moon shadows. The lights of the city down at the coast, which in the heat haze looked to me like rivers of molten lava. Bante's poetry, constant source of inspiration throughout. And an acceptance of it all. Now and then, I should say, not all the time. What was challenging was all the extra meditation. So I'm not exactly wired to be the yogi in the cave. The sitting with my mind, sitting with the difficulties that come up when you sit with your mind, the difficulties of having a mind and a body, and the sitting with the growing awareness of impermanence and death and of suffering. And the grief that rose up in me, the body shaking, tears streaming grief. There are a number of constants that got me through all these. First and foremost was Varabandhu's constant kindness, his warm friendliness, and always exhorting me to remember metta. The constant companionship of Prasannadeva, the sense of us looking out for one another, of being in this together. I was always glad he was there, whether it was in times of intense difficulty for him or for me, or whether it was times of great gladness. And I'm glad to say there was never a bad word spoken between us. So it was just a joy to share that journey with him. And the fatherly-like presence of Artapriya, a man who has love at the center of his mandala and whose life and practice are an exemplification of kindness and compassion. So yeah, I hope you get to meet him someday. So then it was over, and yeah, I'm back and I'm running out of time. So I mean, being back has been intense. People are asking, you know, what it's like being back. At times it's been overwhelming. People also ask, what is it like to be back? And that's a different question because I'm still figuring that out. Everything seems to be the same, but it also seems like everything's not quite the same. It seems like I'm the same, but somehow I'm not. And I'm not trying to sound mysterious, and I don't want to pin it down, and I can't. But reflecting on this over the last few days, I realized that regardless of what it's like to be back or not, the point is to go on retreat to come back, to be here, so I can be more and more fully and completely here. And I have been feeling a lot of gratitude for everyone who's supported me over the last few years, for the team in Guhyaloka in the men's ordination centre there, for the Dublin Buddhist Centre, and for the Irish Sangha. So yeah, as I say, I go on retreat, I do this, initiate myself into a new life so I can be more and more fully myself, and yeah, more and more Varabandhu, perhaps even the most Varabandhu any Varabandhu could be. So thank you.
You're right on time as well, Varabandhu. Oh, good. Great. Could we go wide shot again, Stephen? Great. So thanks, Varabandhu. One of the lovely things about ordination of people that you know well is that, well, even if you don't know them particularly well, is that they come so much more into focus, and their name in particular brings a focus to them. And I just feel like I've been really loving seeing the two boys actually come more and more into focus these last few weeks since they've come back. But also I think just hearing the biographical description there and of all the emotions and the ups and the downs, it's just lovely to hear actually. I just really enjoyed that. So thank you, Varabandhu. Great. And we've another rich talk to come now, I'm sure. So next we have Prasannadeva. Let me just bring up. Oh, Dana Kate is there as well, by the way. I saw him earlier. Yeah. So Prasannadeva. So I'm just going to read out what Yashodeva wrote or said at Prasannadeva's public ordination. Okay, and then I'll hand over to Prasannadeva. So ex-Kevin from Dublin becomes Prasannadeva, the bright, clear and pure Deva. We first got to know each other on an art day I led about 5 years ago at the Dublin Buddhist Centre. His enjoyment of and taste for art revealed itself then. So he's a Deva, a being of light, of refined tastes. When Bhante ordained me, Yashodeva, he pointed out that my name meant a Deva of the path and not of the wheel. Devas are known to shine more brightly when associating with the wise. So Prasannadeva will shine forth ever more greatly from his growing clarity and purity and appreciation of beauty. Prasanna also means kindly disposed, also pleased, delighted, and true, correct, and open, easily intelligible. So all these qualities will increase in him and they will shine forth ever more brightly. So that's a lovely description of Prasannadeva's name. Let me just get my stuff out of the way then, and I will hand over to him.
Hello, everyone. Okay, nice to see some good friendly faces. So, So I'm going to talk a bit about the path that I've taken. So I'm going to go back a few years to when I actually asked for ordination. So I asked for ordination in May 2014 at a international gathering in a place called Adistana, the retreat center where Varabandhu and I did our duolatry before we went to Vajrasana. And I just had an experience of, wow, I really need to give myself fully to this vision of life that the Buddha experienced. And I just said, okay, well, how do I do that? And the way that made most sense to me was to ask for ordination. So I asked for ordination. But in a way, my sort of relationship with ordination and the training kind of changed as that time went along. And a question that kind of been coming up a lot through my ordination path has been, why bother get ordained? And I think that's a pretty good question. So I'm going to kind of start with what getting ordained isn't about for me, because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, will, it takes quite a bit of money. It's not a personal development sort of thing for me. So it's not, just trying to kind of, I don't know, be happier in life. It's something much more than that. And, you know, when you get ordained, there's actually no sort of perks. I don't get any particular perks or allowed to do special things that I wasn't allowed to do before, or particularly a lot of people, when I tell them that I've gotten ordained into a Buddhist order, they're like, oh, so that means you can teach now, or you can, I don't know, charge for something, or kind of like a job or something. You're given a parish and you have to go and you live there and do all that kind of thing. And I mean, that's a very natural sort of question that people ask, but there isn't anything like that. There is a way to live that you are very upfront. So I probably will teach. I would like to teach. I would. People work for centers like myself, so in a way I am quite similar in that sense. But that's not what ordination is about. I don't mean to make it sound like a slog. It's actually been immensely pleasurable for me. I really, really love the whole process of going on retreat to Guhyaloka in particular in Norwich, where the ordination training happens on those retreats. And there was actually immense pleasure and joy in all those things. But for the sake of argument, one could say the things that I got out of that could be kind of cultivated while not training for ordinations. You can still cultivate friendship, connection, joy, the benefits of meditation, without necessarily being ordained. So why did I choose to get ordained? So I'm going to draw out three things that I kind of distilled out of kind of drawing out all the things that it isn't about for me. So the first thing is initiation into a lineage. So a lineage in this respect, there's kind of two aspects to that. So the lineage of the Buddha. So one of the reasons why I wanted to get ordained is because the Buddha ordained people. That was something he did. He created an order of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. So it kind of feels like I'm entering into an immense tradition that the Buddha started 2,500 years ago. So getting ordained really, really felt like stepping into the flow of that lineage, a kind of continuing that tradition of ordination. And of course, there's the lineage of Triratna, the Triratna Buddhist Order as well. So ordination was very important to our teacher, Bhante Sangharachita. And so I kind of feel like, well, this even before I was ordained, there's something very important about ordination, because my teacher felt it was really important not just to create a society of people who were interested in Buddhism or having just kind of nominal membership by paying a fee. He felt it needed to be something more than that. Ordination was really central to what his vision of the order would be. So yeah, that's another aspect of why I wanted to be ordained. A longing to be part of something much bigger than just myself taking inspiration from a tradition, but being totally immersed in a tradition. And I believe this can only really be done through ordination. Another thing is it felt like the most appropriate response to the mystery of existence. I noticed Varabandhu say it was the end of his talk that I don't mean to be mysterious. I do. I won't apologize for any mystery that might come out of my talk today. Yeah, just for warning. I remember something said, I think it was even on the very first course I did here in, the first Buddhism course that I did here. It was something like, existential problems require an existential response. And I might be paraphrasing, but it was something like that I heard. And it really resonated with me. You can't just sort of have a worldly, or you can't kind of paint over the existential situation with work or relationships or all the different things the world has to offer. It required something more in terms of a response to it. So some other ways that I've been thinking about this phrase is, you could say it's a mysterious reply to the great mystery of existence. A mysterious reply to the great mystery of existence. Placing the unknowable, the ineffable at the center of my life. So placing the unknowable, the ineffable at the center of my life. Another way that Sangharakshita has expressed what I'm trying to get at is what he called the mandala of uselessness. So the gist of this idea is that we haven't evolved for millions of years just to be sort of useful or in a utilitarian sense. So it's not just about having a sense of, just being of a very particular purpose of just kind of getting stuff done or being productive. He said it's a virtue to be ornamental, to just exist, to not feel like we have to be useful all the time. So there's something of that in what I'm getting at there as well, around the appropriate response to the great mystery of existence. It was also the activation of a relationship with an archetypal Buddha or Bodhisattva. So at ordination, where we are kind of introduced, so to speak, to a Buddha or Bodhisattva, and you will have heard of them probably before and talked to your preceptors about your current existing relationship with them. But something shifts at ordination in terms of that relationship. So for me, this it's called a yidam. So it's a kind of a tutelary deity. And initially, actually, I wasn't going to have who I ended up taking as my yidam, who's Amitabha, the Buddha we have in the shrine that Rob very kindly put together. I had a different figure in mind, but somehow Amitabha, the figure of Amitabha, was pushing himself upon my experience in very mysterious ways and kind of unexplainable ways that I couldn't sort of deny anymore. So I realized that I was going to take on this Amitabha. So I'm going to describe Amitabha a bit. He's the red Buddha of infinite light. He dwells in the West, in the pure land of Sukhavati, a place where conditions are so supportive to the spiritual life that simply existing there leads to enlightenment. It requires no effort, on behalf of any people living there. He's the Buddha of meditation, and usually displays the mudra of meditation, which we see here. That's his hands doing this. But can also be seen holding a red lotus. He is the Buddha of discriminating wisdom. So wisdom that is in response to the particularities of the individual. Its animal is the peacock, who can swallow poison without being harmed. In fact, that poison is transformed and results in the beautiful plumage of the feathers of the peacock. So, as I said, he sort of imposed himself upon my experience in very, very strange ways. So just to describe one of those is a dream I had. It was during the lockdown. And I had a dream that there was a great, I was in a woods, it was a pine wood. There was a clearing and the sun setting. And I became lucid. And I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. This is a dream. This is amazing. I need to make most of this. Wow, isn't this so amazing? And I went up to one of the branches and I looked at all the little pine needles and just was mesmerized by how vivid they were. So I was like, wow, this is all my mind. This is so incredible. And then I noticed they're all made out of gold. They were literally gold. And I looked on the ground and they were all gold. And I was, wow. And then I just took in the setting sun and I felt like there was something else going on there. So that kind of stuck with me. It was a very, very, very striking, very, very vivid dream. Well, actually, no, it didn't stick with me. It actually kind of fell away into the hinterland of my unconsciousness, but it burst back into my consciousness during the duolatry where I was with Varabandhu. I was reading a little passage. I'll read it out now. It's by Vasantra, who was writing about Sukhavati, the Pure Land of the Buddha Amitabha. A great flat plain stretches away in all directions, covered with a forest of trees. The trees are made of jewels. From time to time, a gentle wind blows, causing a rain of flowers to fall from the sky. The whole land is permeated by an unimaginable radiance. And when I read this, that image just burst into my mind. So that was on that duolatry. So this feels like a good time to say a little bit about that. It was a 2-week, so this word duolatry is solitary, but with 2 people. So a solitary is when you go away by yourself. And during COVID times, we have kind of economized that somewhat by putting 2 people into a space. So in case you wonder, what is that word? So it's a made-up word. And what was really special about that was basically the space we were in was overlooking Bante's burial mound. So he was very, very present for me on that. And of course, we were reading the memoirs. So that was very, very strong. It also allowed me to let go of a lot of the difficulties and stresses around the 1.5-year delay around the ordination, which was really, really important to do, I think, in preparation for entering into the 2 weeks in Vajrasana in Suffolk. So there was a very lovely transition going from Adhisthana to Vajrasana. There was a car, we decided we were going to split the cars up into introverts and extroverts. So I was in the introvert car. So there was like about 5 minutes of talking, I'd say, through the whole 2-hour journey, which was lovely. It just gave a sense of space and able to take in that transition. When I got to Vajrasana, everything seemed to be going quite smoothly when all of a sudden a lot of old anxious habits came up, particularly in the shrine room space. It felt as if I was right back at the beginning, going on my first ever retreat. But I worked with that and it lessened as time went on. I had my private and public ordination. With the private ordination, the main memory is the image of the full moon that came out that night. Great, vivid full moon. And my main memory of the public ordination was the relief of finally, after all the trials and tribulations of entering into the order that I so dearly cared for. I received my name, which you've heard the Yashodeva's words on, so I was really delighted with that. I just loved it pretty immediately. And I was introduced to Amitabha. When I was introduced to Amitabha, I was given the mantra in the private ordination, and it felt like, even though I'd known him, it was a whole new introduction. I was thinking it's like when we all kind of probably had the experience of meeting people on Zoom, and we haven't met them in person before, and you kind of get to know them a little bit. And it's all like, oh yeah, I have a sense of that person. Yeah, I know they look like this, look like that, and you have a sense of the personality, what their likes and dislikes. And then you meet them in real life, and suddenly it's like this much more fuller whole kind of, is almost like in awe of the fact that they're much more than what you experience on Zoom. It was like that times 10 or 100. So that was really, really special. Then we went to Guhyaloka. So you heard a bit about that journey. It was in the wee hours of the morning, and yeah, it was quite surreal, just having been in a sleepy haze and suddenly being in this valley in Spain. Again, there was old patterns of anxiety and even new kind of difficulties, particularly around guilt, started coming up. And I was beginning to get quite, it was very, very strong. So I was beginning to get quite worried about sort of, have I just regressed? It was so strong. I was like, have I just totally regressed? And I talked to my public preceptor, Varabandhu, about this. And he said, well, there's two possibilities. You're either working on these habits on a much, much deeper level than you've ever worked on them before, because you've gone through this whole process, it's initiation, it's the longest period of time on a retreat, or you're totally back at square one, and all the work has gone down the drain. So I was like, yeah, I think I probably know which one that's happening. So that was very helpful, just to kind of acknowledge that it's not a regression, but perhaps just a deeper working out of my unhelpful habits. So there was lots of challenges, but there was lots of joys. A lot of what Varabandhu said echoes with me, with the exception of the compost toilets and some of the more basic aspects of the retreat center. I didn't love those. Another thing I was quite anxious about, there had been a kind of a big event, something really big that I can come back. So on my welcome back night, I have something really epic to talk about. But be careful what you wish for, because something kind of did happen, and it's so subtle, I don't quite know how to communicate it. It's almost inexpressible. It was a sort of insight, but it was brief and flashing, but had a very, very strong effect on me. But I found a quote that puts it very well. So I'm just going to read that out. There are only fleeting instants scattered throughout our lives, when all at once, our defenses momentarily relaxed, we find ourselves brought to a pause by a sudden, unanticipated sense of the utter uncanniness of the reality we inhabit, and startling fortuity and strangeness of everything familiar. How odd it is, how unfathomable that anything at all exists. How disconcerting that the world and one's consciousness of it are simply there, joined in a single ineffable event. So I read that in this zine, Born of Fire Void, that there's a new copy of it, and from Aryapala's section in that. So thank you for Aryapala. And one more thing that just struck me about Guhyaloka is how in the pine forest of the valley, there was many clearings looking out onto a sort of plain down by the coast. Often the sun would be setting around those clearings. And that sun, the soft rays of the sun, would make all the pines look golden, both on the branches and on the floor. So it's a sort of familiar scene. Okay, so just looking back on everything that's happened, I kind of feel like it's too soon to know what all this is about, how it will shape my life. I do not know what it is I did in a way. I would be kind of let down if I knew exactly what it was I had just done. But I do feel lots of gratitude. So just want to say express my gratitude to a number of people. So to my Kalyana Mitras, Vajrasana and Jnanadhara, to Varabandhu, my brother on the path, to my private preceptor and public preceptor, Yashadeva and Paramabandhu, respectively, to my family and friends who supported me through the whole process of ordination training and going away for such a long time. I particularly want to mention my parents and to my partner, Dharma. I want to express gratitude to all the Padmaloka ordination team and to the people who actually financially helped me go with the fundraise that happened before I left to make it possible for me to go, financially speaking. And finally, to my precious teacher, Bhante Sangharachita. So I'm 2 minutes over, but I'm just going to conclude now with a little piece I've written. So I'm just going to read this out and then I'll be done. So on the steep ascent of the mountainside next to the retreat center, there is a natural amphitheater, a segment cut out of the mountainside by the elements. The rock is reddish color, in contrast to the limestone gray of most of the valley. It's not difficult to get there, but there is no path, and it becomes a bit of a scramble at times, with rocks and dry clay falling underfoot at times. I climbed up one morning by myself towards the end of the retreat. I was immensely struck by the atmosphere of the amphitheater, the change in the light, the cool air, the sense of enclosure and protection. I decided to try to find the sweet spot where you can hear your own voice reverberate through the space. Singing the Amitabha mantra, I moved around the space, chanting and listening, but to no avail. I could not find any sweet spot, and my voice was just lost in the dead acoustic of the dry rock clearing. But on my return to the retreat center, Arya Vasan later asked me if I was in the natural amphitheater earlier that day. And to my positive response, he told me he knew, as he could hear a beautiful Amitabha mantra as he sat on Pride Rock, a rock formation way down in the valley. Reflecting on this, I thought to myself, I cannot know what it is I have just done, or who will hear the echo of my positive actions, of my going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Thank you.
Okay, guys, welcome back. We're going to kick off now. So if you have any questions, I don't see any in the chat. So maybe the two boys have answered them all. The two new order members have answered all questions. If anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, we could do that as well. We have a few minutes for questions before we do meditation and puja. We'll just sit here and radiate, or the two guys will radiate Punya while we're waiting for questions. What's your favorite color?
There was one here from Stephen Mackin. I could read it out if you want. Can you ask both guys, when they finally received their new order names, did they get the sense that they had achieved spiritual rebirth?
The microphone over to them. So did you hear the question?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay, we'll start the Puja.
No, I couldn't say it was particular to the point at receiving the name. There's a whole the whole ordination retreat up to that point is going to sort of a process, and there's lots of practices that sort of give a sense of the loosening of the self, but simultaneously there's something else coming in, kind of arising out of that. So I couldn't say it was particular to receiving the name. I couldn't pinpoint it to that point, to that spot, but there was definitely that kind of spiritual death and rebirth processes happening generally around that time period. What I did feel when I heard the name was just a sense of a kind of an expansion of sorts. It's sort of like something that I could grow into. It felt aspirational almost immediately, because I could see aspects of my self in that, but it was just felt very, very aspirational in a very positive way. So I just felt a lot of joy about that. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't really put it any better than that. I mean, I'd agree with everything you said, especially around the idea of it sort of being something that, the name being something that, it will take me a lifetime or lifetimes to fill. Is it? Am I on this camera? Where's my camera? Really, that's all I could say. Really, it's a sense of there was, I suppose, in the negative, I would say that, and some people say, and obviously this is true for them, that when they hear the name, they feel, they had the sense that, oh wow, that's always been my name. I can't claim to have felt that, but I did feel, yes, that's my name now. That's my name. That's who I will be. I will meet that name, and I will do my best to meet that name. So yeah.
Right, thanks guys. Anyone else? Anything else? Tony has a question from behind the camera. So I'll repeat the question because they probably won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that came to my mind talking about, you both kind of talking about a draw and a sense of to the Dharma life of wonder and ineffability, to the nature of existence. What have you feel like you both have learned anything on your retreat? So through the process of the retreat, let's say.
So Tony was highlighting the draw that both of them had towards the nature of reality. And have you learned anything, I guess, in that regard, is it, about even the retreat? Do you feel more in tune with reality? Do you feel more like, I don't know, yeah.
I might shoot first this one, because this was something I was going to say in the talk anyway. So thanks, Tony. It's a good question. Yeah, definitely like trying to re-find almost a childlike love of the mystery of the world, of the universe, was something that drives me. And on the retreat, there was definitely this sense of, all right, I have to have this, I want to have experience of that. I want to have this big experience of that. And actually that became really painful, because I wanted like thunderbolts and lightning, like spiritually speaking, and it wasn't happening. And it was really painful. And I spoke to my preceptor about it, and it basically became clear that what I was, because we were hearing all about the magic of the valley, and we're hearing through the poems of Bhante about the magic of the valley, and to me it was almost like the valley was taunting me because I couldn't connect with this magic. And Varabandhu was saying to me, well, maybe the valley is trying to teach you, maybe the magic of the valley here is that it's trying to point you towards a deeper sense of dukkha, of suffering. And I remember saying to him, yeah, that's probably true, but I don't want that. Can we do something else? Is there another way? And there wasn't. I mean, essentially, when I realized, and I was joking with him, but I took his advice, and what I learned from that was I had to just give up wanting this thing out there and have the experience of being in touch with the suffering that is inherent in life. And by doing that, I was actually able to find some peace. So I mean, I suppose that was a big learning for me. So I mean, yeah. And obviously it's a continual learning as well. It's a continual perfecting of that.
Well, I mean, I sort of alluded to something in my talk, which was a very particular kind of, only a few minutes of sort of experiencing reality in a totally different way, that I felt that quote illustrated a lot better than I could. So, but in terms of learning from that, I don't want to I want to highlight that experience was sort of like a momentary seeing something, but what I learned was that I couldn't really quite take that in very much. I could only kind of take it for like a couple of minutes, and even at that, it was so intense. So I kind of learned that I need to be much bigger to be able to take in reality in its totality. It was such a small glimpse of reality, but it was so strong. So I kind of learned that, wow, okay, I really have to really transform my mind. I really, really have to work at looking at reality and being able to hold that. So not just seeing it, but able to hold it, because so I kind of learned a bit about myself through that experience, and how much I need to actually loosen that sense of self, so I can actually take on reality a bit more fully. But so I don't think I learned a bit about myself. I didn't learn an awful lot about the nature of reality per se, except that there's a long way to go on that. So yeah.
Great. And then there's one more question, and then we'll go into the puja. So Jean has asked from Killaloe, if you were speaking to someone just starting on the ordination journey, is there any small nugget of advice you could share for the early days? So Jean obviously is quite interested in that.
I would just really relish it. Some of the, my ordination process just was full of joy, actually. It was just full of enjoyment, and I just loved the pleasure of being on ordination training retreats and all that kind of thing. And I kind of felt like actually, made the most of it. And I just encourage other people to just do that, kind of relax, actually. I wasn't too concerned about kind of talking to the right people or how to get ordained really fast or anything like that. That kind of changed as the years went on. I did kind of feel like I needed to turn up the intensity a bit, but for the beginning, just enjoy it. Enjoy the making friends and connections and the pleasure of being on retreat, and or ordination training retreats, and G4 groups, and connecting with people in your area, all that kind of thing. It can be a real joy. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking, but then you said at the end was to add, but you said to just make friendship. Yeah. Friendship with people who are practicing as well is really, really important.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming along. thank you to Varabandhu and Prasannadeva for 2 wonderful talks, and for being ordained and coming back and speaking to us. Thanks to Stephen and Tony for all the technical help tonight. And we'll see you soon, hopefully. And if you want to express your gratitude, you can unmute yourself to the 2 guys or your blessings. It'd be nice to give them a little bit of a cheer or some sort, or just a wave of blessings. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want and just wish them well.
Well done, guys. Lovely speeches.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Sadhu, brothers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sadhu.
That's
Thanks,
Amy.
Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Sadhu to you both.
Jean.
Thanks, Jean.
Sadhu, guys. Hope to
Sadhu,
see you soon.
guys. Great to see you.
Bye.